In late March 1922, deep in the Bavarian countryside of Germany, a quiet farmstead stood isolated among fields and forests. Known locally as Hinterkaifeck, it was home to the Gruber family. Hardworking, reclusive, and ordinary by all appearances. But something strange had been happening at the farm. Footsteps in the snow that led to the house but never away. Unfamiliar noises in the attic. Keys going missing. Shadows glimpsed at night. Then, on March 31st, all 6 inhabitants of the farm, including 2 small children, were brutally murdered with a mattock, a type of farm tool. Their bodies were discovered days later, gruesomely stacked and covered with hay. The case shocked Germany. Who killed the Gruber family? Why? And who lived in the farmhouse in the days after the murders, feeding the cattle and eating meals in the kitchen? The Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of Europe's most disturbing unsolved crimes. A haunting mix of folklore, horror, and cold reality. Part 1. Life on Hinterkaifeck Farm. Hinterkaifeck was not a town, but a single farmstead about 70 kilometers north of Munich. It belonged to Andreas Gruber, 63, and his wife Cecilia, 72. Living with them were their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, 35, her 2 children, Cecilia, 7, and Joseph, just 2, and their maid Maria Baumgartner, 44. The family was known as reclusive and strict. Andreas in particular had a reputation for being harsh and controlling. Rumors of abuse and scandal followed the Grubers, including whispers that young Joseph was the product of incest between Andreas and his daughter Victoria. Despite the rumors, they carried on farming, their days filled with chores, their nights quiet and isolated. But in the months leading up to the murders, they began noticing disturbing signs that something, or someone, was lurking nearby. Part 2. Strange events before the murders. Several strange incidents foreshadowed the tragedy. Footsteps in the snow. In March 1922, Andreas found footprints leading from the forest to the farmhouse, but none leading back. Whoever made them had approached but never seemed to leave. Noises in the attic. The family reported hearing footsteps and movement in the attic, though searches revealed nothing. Missing keys. A set of house keys mysteriously disappeared. Abandoned newspaper. A strange Munich newspaper appeared in the house, though no one had purchased it. The family spoke of their unease to neighbors. Andreas even considered moving but decided against it. Days later, they were dead. Part 3. The murders. On the evening of March 31st, 1922, someone lured 4 members of the family, Andreas, Cecilia, Sr., Victoria, and little Cecilia, Jr., into the barn. One by one, they were struck down with blows from a mattock. Their skulls were crushed. Inside the house, young Joseph was murdered in his crib, and the maid Maria was killed in her room on her very first day of work. The brutality shocked investigators. Even more chilling, the murderer stacked the 4 barn victims neatly and covered them with hay, as though tidying the scene. The maid and Joseph were also covered with sheets. Part 4. The discovery. For days, the farm was silent. Smoke rose from the chimney. Animals were fed. Bread was baked in the oven. But no one saw the family. On April 4th, neighbors visited the farm after schoolchildren noticed little Cecilia was absent. They found the gruesome scene. Police were called, and what they discovered horrified the nation. The killer had remained in the house for several days after the murders, caring for livestock, eating meals, and living among the dead. Part 5. The investigation. The local police were overwhelmed. The crime scene was contaminated as dozens of villagers trampled through the farm before investigators arrived. Key evidence was lost or mishandled. Still, the case was pursued relentlessly. Hundreds of suspects were interviewed. Forensic techniques were primitive, but theories emerged. Part 6. Theories. 1. Robbery gone wrong. At first, investigators thought robbery was the motive. But money and valuables were untouched, making this theory unlikely. 2. Personal revenge. The brutality suggested hatred. Some suspected neighbors or acquaintances with grudges against Andreas. 3. The family scandal. Rumors swirled about incest between Andreas and Victoria. Could Joseph's father, rumored to be either Andreas himself or Victoria's neighbor Lorenz Schlittenbauer, have snapped? Lorenz, who discovered the bodies, was long considered suspicious. 4. A hidden stranger. Given the footsteps and attic noises, many believe the killer lived secretly on the farm before striking. This theory is supported by the eerie signs of habitation in the days after. 5. A serial killer. Some suggest the murders were the work of a wandering madman or vagrant who struck and disappeared. But the organized aftermath seems too deliberate. Part 7. The aftermath. The farm was eventually demolished, but the murders lived on in local legend. Generations of Bavarians passed down the story of Hinterkaifeck, a tale as much ghost story as true crime. Even today, researchers, historians, and amateur sleuths comb through the case files, searching for answers. DNA testing in the 2000s provided no conclusive results. Part 8. Why it still haunts. The Hinterkaifeck murders endure in public memory because they combine true crime with horror movie atmosphere. An isolated farmhouse. Footsteps in the snow. Unseen strangers in the attic. A family slaughtered. A killer who lingered among the dead. It's a nightmare scenario, and because it remains unsolved, it continues to chill imaginations a century later. Conclusion. The Hinterkaifeck murders are not just a crime. They are a legend. A family brutally slaughtered. Killer who vanished. And a farmstead where whispers of footsteps still echo in the snow. 100 years later, the case remains unsolved. Germany's creepiest cold case, forever frozen in time.